My name is Teresa Farmer. This is my life, my story.
Okay, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Okay, thank you for coming in. And this story, it's kind of like a story and a testimony. And I really appreciate you coming in and telling your story for me. First, I want to know where are you from?
I'm from Wilson, but I was raised in Wayne County.
Okay, and so you come from a pretty good sized family. How many siblings do you have?
I have 7 brothers, one sister that was raised with me, and 3 sisters, half sisters.
Okay, so pretty big family.
Yes.
uh, were you all close growing up?
Me and my siblings that was at home, the 9, yes.
Okay, and what was it like in the household?
It was very dysfunctional.
Okay. Um, would you say there was a lot of abuse going on?
Yes.
Okay. Well, tell me about that. Tell me a little bit about that.
It was a lot of mental, physical, verbal, and there was some sexual abuse going on in the home.
Okay. Um, was your mother and your father home?
My mom was always home. My dad was in and out the home, but he ruled the home.
Okay. And when you say rude, you mean he was more likely the abuser as far as physical and
Yes.
okay. Um, what were some of the things you weren't allowed to do at home?
We weren't allowed to have a phone. We weren't allowed to go to the neighbor's house. We weren't allowed to go to sports in school. We weren't allowed to stay at other people's houses unless he took us to my mom's mother's house. And every now and then we visited his mom's house. Um, we weren't allowed to break things. If we tore things up, it was a serious punishment. If we broke a dish, we had to eat out of pot lids. If we burnt something, you got a whooping. It was very strict.
Very strict. Okay. So he was a real strict father. Um, how was how was your father and your mother relationship?
I, in my words, I believe my mom feared my father, but she also loved my father.
Okay, okay. Um, what was it like? What was it like cause see as you growing up, you're going to high school eventually, and you're dealing with this abuse at home. What was that like for you?
In high school, I was singled out. I was the kid that was picked on. I was the girl that they call ugly. I was the black, dark skinned girl that nobody wanted to play with. I wasn't the girl that no guys wanted to talk to. Um, I was picked on because of our clothes, our shoes. We weren't allowed to wear fashion. We weren't allowed to buy fashion. We weren't allowed to do a lot of things. And so we were always being picked or bullied. And it really took a toll from the teachers to the students. And we weren't allowed to speak about what we were going through at home. So it did something to us mentally as well as physical because my brothers got in fights. I as well got in fights.
Mm. And that's because you're holding a lot of stuff in, and from the abuse at home, and then when you get to school, people picking on you.
Yes.
Uh, now, as you get okay, I'm gonna ask you, what did you decide to do after high school?
After high school, I decided to take a detour. I was supposed to go in the military,
Okay,
and I took a detour, and I decided I wanted to party and live life the way I chose to live life.
okay. And you think that has something to do with growing up in a strict household where you couldn't really do anything. So when you now this is your freedom, and you want to get out there and see, party a little bit.
I didn't want to be controlled.
Hmm.
And going in the military, I know it was a lot of control. It was a little bit of fear of being from home, but I didn't want to be controlled by anybody. And watching my dad control my mom, it made me never want to be controlled by anybody.
That's understandable. Um, Now, during when you're getting out, experiencing a little bit of life, partying a little bit things, uh, you happen to go to the doctor at this time at a young age, and he tells you that they found cancer cells. Is that correct?
Yes, I was 18. I got on birth control because I didn't want to have babies by the men I didn't want to. And so I got on birth control. And as I was getting on birth control, they did a test, found out I had cancer cells at 18. I didn't tell anybody. They told me the procedure that they was going to do, and they was going to laser them off. I went in the office on a cab. They lasered them off. I went to my brother's house and just lay down and just went to sleep.
So at that time, you didn't really take it as something serious because they knew they can just laser it off and and be done with it, basically.
Yeah, I didn't take it serious because I didn't want to talk to nobody about it. Didn't want to share it with my mom because of me and her relationship. I love my mom, but we weren't that typical close mother daughter relationship. We are now, but we weren't then.
Okay, okay. Now, so around this time, you're 18. You're still kind of out partying and having a good time. Are you meeting guys or you getting into relationships? How's that going?
I'm getting into relationships now. I'm being noticed.
Okay.
In school, I was really much the peaked on girl, so I was a little bit invisible, which I kind of liked, but didn't like. And so now I'm getting into these guys, not really finding out who they are, not trying to know their past. I didn't care. I just got noticed. So, and when you get noticed, you can pick up anything. So I started picking up guys that were like my father, the abuser.
And would you say what type of abuse? Like more physical or more verbal?
I went through both. They picked on me for my clothes, my hair. One time I got my hair done and the guy took my hair loose while I was asleep. So I woke up, my hair wasn't done because he didn't want me to look pretty. He didn't want me to be attracted to other guys. I was beat on. I was beat on in my mom's house. Um, he was even asked me to set my mom on fire, and my mom didn't know it, and because she was working, and when she came home, and I was busy trying to help her and keep her done, but he was just in his own little way, just trying to control me.
Yeah. Now, during that abusive relationship, you meet someone else, correct?
Yes,
You want to tell me a little bit about that? The next guy you meet?
well, the next one, he was also an abuser. He was just like the first one. They were just like my dad, controlling, bossy, pushy, and I was steady trying to get away and run away from him. Always assaulting me, always accusing me of other men, and everywhere I turned, I couldn't go with my brothers anywhere. I couldn't go this place, but he was the main one cheating,
Yeah.
and he would. Me and the girl sitting right beside each other, and I'm not knowing he's cheating with her, and we're all in the same car. So, but I was being the one abused and called the cheater, the ugly one. Nobody wants you but me, and it was verbal and physical all the time.
And do you think these may have stemmed from how you grew up with an abusive father? You think that you attracted that or something, or I'm just trying to figure because a lot of times that happens when you have that at home, and you know that's the only type of love you may know. So you attract that type of person, and then you go through that again in your relationships.
I think that was part of it, but even though I was running from trying to be with those type of men, because I didn't, I fought back, and then sometimes I just got tired and weak and fearful. I was very fearful because it got worse. And I didn't want my brothers involved in something and them lose their life, so I didn't put them in and get them involved, and I kept it to myself a lot of times. And I attracted them because they were broken, I was broken, and thinking I can help heal who's broken and give them what I didn't have.
Now, and at this time you're relatively still young. You're in your 20s now. Um, Did did you were you able to have any kids? Did you have any kids at that time?
No, I
Okay.
didn't. By the time I'm 21, I'm getting ready to be about 22, and I got pregnant with the first child. I was involved in a robbery, and I didn't know I was pregnant. So when I went to the doctor, I found I was pregnant. I called the guy, and we weren't even supposed to have been dating.
Okay.
And I was the girl on the side,
Okay.
and young, immature. But the girl on the side, and when I called him and told him that I was pregnant, he was like, "What have you done?"
Mm.
So therefore, he left me by myself to deal with it, and I ended up having a miscarriage. Um, Throughout the years, months of us being together, we ended up having three miscarriages together. One was an ectopic pregnancy, which I hid two of them. Only reason they knew about the third one because I had to have surgery,
Mm.
and I had to stay overnight. So I was living with my brother, and you couldn't hide it.
Yeah.
But I hid the first ones. It was so easy because they were normal miscarriages. You go to the hospital, they give you your D&C, they let you go home.
Mm.
And I went through those miscarriages alone. And it was just, it became a habit. Doing
Mm.
stuff to myself, keeping stuff to myself, and going through stuff by myself.
Mm. Wow. So I want to backtrack just a second. You're in your 20s still at this time, early 20s. You're dealing with abusive relationships, miscarriages. Um, how was that emotionally for you? Like emotionally, were you still kind of drinking a lot, or was it drugs, or because most people in that situation, they would go to drugs or drinking a lot or just having sex with a lot of people. You know what I mean? So emotionally, how was you feeling at that time?
I drowned it out with the alcohol. I drowned out my thoughts. As people say, the voices in their head. I drowned it out with partying, going to work hungover, and going home as soon as I can get to work. It was easier to drown it out and not think about it and cry in the shower, cry in silence, and versus having to actually talk about it, or who could you talk to about it without being judged, without being criticized, without saying it's your fault, you allowed it, and the harsh things that people typically say to you. And I didn't want to hear those things. So it was easier. People don't notice you when you're partying and when you're drinking and you put on the smile,
Hmm.
but behind the smile, there's pain. So it was
Exactly.
easy to hide.
Exactly. Mm. So you meet a new guy, and this turns out to be the probably the most abusive. Uh,
Yes.
uh, what were his was his abuse typically? How was his abuse different than the other guys? Was he more physical? Or,
He was very much physical.
mm,
Um, he shot at me.
wow.
He would beat me going to work. He would take me to work. He he would beat me on my way to work. He would beat me when I get off work. He would beat me. It didn't matter where it was. I could get beat for somebody walking to the mailbox. And I don't even know who the guy is.
Yeah.
He accused me of a man just standing at going to his mailbox, and I didn't see the guy.
No.
I was always walking around with my head hung down in shame. I wasn't allowed to talk to people I knew. I wasn't allowed to talk to girls. He accused me of sleeping with men and women. I couldn't answer the phone. I couldn't have a cell phone. By then, cell phones were, everybody had cell phones.
Mm,
I wasn't allowed to go to my sister's house, my mom's house, my brother's house, anybody's house I went to unless he was with me. I was sleeping with somebody. So if he asked me a question and I didn't answer it, he would punch me in my knees.
mm,
He would. I wore black eyes. Now the abuse is very much visible. You can't hide. I wore bruises on my arms. He even told me how to dress the bruises up and hide them with toothpaste so they'll heal faster. He beat me while I was pregnant by him. He caught me running away from him and beat me. At night, I used to run away. There was a cab man that used to help me run away.
mm.
Um, and I was always running away, trying to get away. And when I tried to run away, a couple of times I was running, I was turned away. So it was to the point I feared for me. I feared for the people around me. So
That was a difficult time, I
it
can
was
tell.
very, very difficult because he beat me while I was up until 2004 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had to jump out of a moving car right after having surgery of getting my port put in. And everybody knows ports are connected to your heart, your main artery in your heart. And if it wasn't for two ladies, God sent two angels, they rescued me. And over a cell phone where he thought a guy was texting me. And it wasn't, it was family. But he would put my car in park while I'm driving it. Just snatch it in park. Just to fuss, argue, and fight. It was every day was a physical day.
So just his insecurities, he putting that on you,
Yeah.
and
I had to ban him from my job. He would go to my job. He would send to his cousins in my job, and they were laughing and thought it was amusing and funny, or would tell me they would call him and he's gonna beat me.
now you mentioned that you were diagnosed with breast cancer. How did you find out about that?
This same guy, I had moved away in Kinley, and he found out where I was, and he came in, and he wanted to play wrestle. I don't like play fighting, period, because it leads to physical fighting. And he was wrestling, and when I moved my arm, it had to be God because when I moved my hand back, I found it. I just had a miscarriage with this guy, and I moved my arm, and I found a lump myself after having a physical from having a miscarriage.
Okay, and you're still relatively young at this age. You're
29.
29 years old. Wow. And you just mentioned again another miscarriage. So this is what, 4 or 5 miscarriages?
This was
Four.
number 5.
Okay. So you had cancer cells at 18. You're going through life. You have 5 miscarriages at this point.
Yes.
Now you found out that you have breast cancer. Now, this would drive someone crazy. This would literally drive someone crazy having to deal with all this at 29 years old. That's a young age. Um, did did you get any help with the breast cancer? Did this guy help you out, like going through that? You had to have chemo and things like that, right?
No, he didn't help me out. This was my final breaking point. It was flight or fight, and I was tired of fighting. And my brother and his wife took me in,
Okay.
and even though I was staying on my own, and but they took me in, and he came at the hospital, and he was beating me there, knowing I had a blood clot, and the nurse put him out of the hospital, and I had to stay for a whole week. And then when I got home, my mom was like, she's had a restless night. She wouldn't let him come in and bother with me. But no, he wasn't there. This was one, it was a hard journey, knowing that the support you really need wasn't there.
Now, you mentioned that you moved with your brother uh, and his wife, and you were able to get. So in the hospital, you were able to get chemo, and were they able to get rid of the breast cancer?
Yes, I had surgery. After the surgery, they gave me chemo. I did 6 treatments of chemo, and I did 33 treatments of radiation.
Okay. And so at this though, so you're still 29, 30, right in the area. You experienced breast cancer, chemo abuse. Um, so let's move a little forward. Was it this time you decided to join the church, or what made you, well, I can imagine going through the stuff that you went through. At some point, that would draw you to some type of church or towards God or some type of religion. Is that what happened?
No, after radiation, I still kind of took life for granted.
Okay.
During radiation, I went out, started back partying again,
Okay.
still going through my own emotions in my head, trying to process where I went wrong and how life went wrong with me. And then my uncle contracted cancer and he died. And I asked God, why? Why him, not me? So I started going to church. His son invited and his wife invited me to church. So, and this was in 2006.
Okay.
And by then, now I'm seeing something that I always ran from. I never wanted to be in church
Okay.
because my mom was in church, my dad's family was in church, and I was hurt by family that were in church. So I did not want parts of God if this is how God treats you.
Exactly.
So when I got there, I saw some love, I saw some compassion, and my heart just warmed up.
Oh, okay.
And so by 2006, I'm in the church. I'm going real strong. And I fell in love with God.
Yes. So, and that's wonderful. Um, so as the years are going, your faith is building, and you're growing into a woman. You're a woman, getting older now, and then in 2020, you find out you have another scare, which is lung cancer.
Yes. Prior to that, before I had I had to have a surgery, and that's when I found out I couldn't have kids.
Oh, okay.
I had to have a hysterectomy, and I couldn't have kids. I've had multiple surgeries,
Yeah.
and my body's been through a lot to be so young.
Yeah.
So once 2020 hit, I was in a new relationship, and I'm finally in a long-term relationship.
Okay.
And first guy that I've ever been with for longer than 2 years,
Okay.
and we're still going through a lot of mental abuse
Okay.
because it wasn't pretty. It was the cheating, the lies, the yelling, the screaming. Now we're both yelling and screaming. I've taken enough. So now I'm physically drained and I'm yelling as well as he's yelling. We're fussing, we're arguing. And sometimes you tend to become the abuser yourself. And you have
Yeah.
to admit it to yourself because we've been through so much.
Exactly.
So when 2020 hits, my faith was shaken again. Was already a little bit rocky because I had backslidden.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it did not deter me from God and his plan. I drew closer to God, actually. My family was more attentive this time with me. They was there 24 hours a day. Yeah, I couldn't get rid of them. I couldn't hide it this time, and I couldn't hide me this
Okay.
time like I did with the first two. So now I just said, God, if this is your plan, and if this is the end of my life, I accept.
Now let me ask you this: being so young, going through the abuse you did, and with the relationships with your family, did you seek any therapy?
In
Once.
2011,
Okay.
I went through therapy because I saw myself giving up
Okay.
on me.
Okay. So, because I know a lot of people, they don't reach out to therapists. They, especially in the black community, we like to hold stuff in, like you said you did before. We like to hold stuff in and don't tell nobody. Just put their smile on and not say anything. Uh, did you say that they helped you? Would you say that they helped you during some time that you needed them?
Yes, it taught me to learn how to journal more.
Okay.
I write my thoughts down versus holding them in
Okay.
as much as I used to. And I don't always have negative thoughts as much as I used to. I learned to open up more. I learned to embrace who I am more because I didn't love me. I didn't like me because of the thoughts and what people said. I didn't understand me and why I went through so much. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my purpose. So when I found therapy, at first I used to sit and just cry. It was hard to tell somebody these things that happened to you.
Exactly.
And but I'm grateful because I was one person who did not believe in therapy. But I can say it took therapy and it took God.
Get you through. Now I wanted to ask. Now we're coming into 2023. Where it's 2023. How are you now with the lung cancer
It's in remission.
right now? Okay, great. And so it's a possibility that they may be able to get it all out. Or
I'm hoping and praying that one day when I take these x-rays and CAT scans, I go through them every 6 months,
okay,
that they say they see no more cancer.
I know that. Let me ask you this. This will be the last question. Well, it's really going to be a statement for you. If you had the opportunity to speak to a young girl, or maybe yourself as a your younger self, and they went through the same thing you went through with the molestation, abusive relationships, miscarriages, and they're just torn. Uh, what kind of advice would you say to them, or what would you say to them?
First, I start with the scripture, and it's Proverbs 3, verses 3 through 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. I recite that scripture every day to remind myself that even when I think it looks bad, God always is right there. And he's directing. He's the director. He's the head of my life. And he knows what's best for me. And to tell myself, the younger version, you don't have to do this by yourself. Reach out to somebody, reach out to a therapist, reach out to anybody you can. Be that friend, be that loved one that listens, that pours into someone, that gives back love, that's not the one that judges. Be that one, be that example for yourself as well as somebody else. Because it's hard living day to day, but it's even harder when you're living through trials and tribulations and traumas, scares, and you don't have no one to turn to. You don't know which way to go. You don't feel you can trust yourself. You don't feel you can trust other people. And you don't have your faith. Because when I didn't have my faith, I was just lost. Now that I have my faith, I choose to help another female. I choose to pour into her. And I choose to show her that it's okay to love yourself. It's okay to look at yourself and feel beautiful. It's okay to know that you don't have to get up and wear the best things in the world to be who you are. And God loves you. And he has someone that does love you. I love you.
Wow, that's deep. Well, Teresa, I really appreciate you coming in because this is a strong testimony, and a lot of people won't be honest enough to talk about this type of thing. So I really appreciate you even coming in, speaking about it, giving your testimony, giving your story, and we wish nothing but blessings towards you. We definitely pray that everything works out for you with your lung cancer. But I really do thank you for coming in and telling your story.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.